Man and Machine is brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts, and the following sponsors.
Unbelievable! Now we're talking.
Welcome back to Man and Machine. If it's car collections you want, then we have found one. This collection belongs to Ron Klein and it's packed full of iconic Holdens. So let's get into it and check them out. Here we are with the man himself, Ron Klein. Ron, what a magnificent collection you've got here, mate. It's great to see it.
Thank you very much. It is. It's a special collection and especially special to me. I love them all. They're great.
Mate, we've got a few cars to get through here. So how about we talk about this one here, this VK Group A, this Blue Meanie.
It's a wonderful motor car. It's the best sounding V8 for a car with a single exhaust pipe that you'd probably ever find. This was the first car that I actually purchased, Glenn, that was away from Tiranas, and I got it in about 2007, 2008, and I bought it from a guy in Newcastle who had fully restored it, and it's been in my collection ever since, and I get it out and drive it and have just a lovely time with it. It's a special car. It's got a pretty lumpy cam in it. It goes really, really well, incredibly comfortable with the Shield seats. They're beautiful to sit in, and the cloth interior is a nice change from the Tiranas, which are all vinyl. It's a lovely, lovely motor car. Great fun.
Ron, I'm getting excited, mate. An LX hatchback Tirana. Tell us about this beautiful machine.
Glenn, it's a lovely car. It's a 1976 LX L31 M21 car, so it's a genuine 308 4-speed. I'm told, and I certainly don't know for a fact, but I'm told by people who are more knowledgeable than me about Tiranas that this is in fact rarer than an A9X hatchback. They made a lot of 253 manuals and they made a lot of 308 autos, but they didn't make a lot of 308 manual hatchbacks. So it's a rare car. I like it a lot primarily because it's such a fantastic colour. It's been beautifully restored, and the Mandarin red is just a really out there, alive colour.
Probably the best colour.
So I went and bought this car. I brought it back to Melbourne. I realised just how much of a restoration it was in need of. It went to a panel beater, Nathan Rich, up in Ballarat, who did the work for me, all the body work for me, and did a magnificent job. He really did do a beautiful job. He's a great craftsman. The car had its original engine and still does today. That lasted about another 3 years after the paint was done, but sadly the engine passed away. And so we've had the engine fully rebuilt about 2 years ago. It's only done a couple of thousand Ks since. It's a lovely car to drive, really comfortable, very smooth and quiet. The engine's been beautifully built as well. Sounds great. Got lots of get up and go in it. There's nothing not to like about this car. It's a beauty.
So Ron, tell me, where did your passion start for cars? Where did it all begin?
I was probably born with it, if the truth be known. It's just something that I've had ever since I can remember. I don't have a childhood memory of not being crazy about cars, and I guess where it really became silly was in 1972. I remember the GTR XU1 was launched, and it was just the most amazing motor car to me. I just adored it, loved it, wanted one, always did. Sadly, it took me 35 years to get one, but eventually I did, and that's when the passion really started.
And you're obviously pretty keen on the Holden product. I know you have other cars, but you have a bit of a soft spot from the Holdens from what I can see.
From what I've learned, Glenn, I think most people inherit what their dad was, and my dad was a Holden man. He always was through and through, and I inherited that from him way back to when I fell in love with the GTR XU1 in 1972. So yes, I am a Holden person, but that doesn't mean I have a closed mind to other brands of cars, and I've got some other cars that I love equally as I love Holdens. But yeah, Holdens have got the real soft spot for me.
Shannons Club, a hub for motoring enthusiasts. So join, create your own garage, share pics, videos and stories of your current and past machines, connect with other enthusiasts. Be sure to watch Shannons Club TV with a host of dedicated motoring channels, including past episodes of Man and Machine. So jump on board with Shannons Club. I'll see you on there. Ron, a giant killer. Tell us about this little LJ, mate.
Glenn, this was the beginning of the love affair for me. As I might have mentioned before, when I was back in 1972 and I saw these first come onto the road, I just thought they were the most magnificent thing I'd ever seen, and I vowed then that I was going to own one. As I said, it took me 35 years to get to that point, but eventually I did. So this was the beginning of the collection, the first car that I bought. I bought it from here in Melbourne. It was in bad need of restoration once again, and brought it home, and it was a labour of love. I'm not mechanically minded, particularly myself, and I'm not a panel beater or anything, so as a consequence I had to get it all done, and it took a long time and cost a lot of money, but I finished up with this beautiful 1972 LJ GDR XU1. It's the 6-cylinder one in the collection. The sound is just fantastic, lovely to drive, so light and easy and nimble to drive. It's a lovely machine. Salamanca red's a great colour. The houndstooth trim really sets it off. David Jones pattern, as so many people frequently refer to it. And that's held up pretty well also. It's a lovely combination, a nice car.
And they were a giant killer. I mean, Peter Brock took on the mighty GTHO with Alan Moffat at the wheel and a damp Bathurst and won, didn't he?
And people would have said a little 6-cylinder like this wasn't going to do it, but I think they left him for dead in the straights, but he caught them up in the corners, and that's what they're all about. They're just a really quick, nippy little car. The steering on it is remarkable. It hasn't got power steering, obviously. It's way before power steering was introduced onto cars, but the steering, you can turn it with your finger. It's just so light. It's a fabulous little car and a joy to drive. Good fun. Turns heads too. When you're driving it on the street, you pull up at the traffic lights. I've had people literally jump in front of me as I've been sitting at traffic lights with their phones and their cameras taking pictures of the car, saying, please don't drive off till I've got a photo of it. And the other thing that I find really interesting about this car is that, you know, even among my own kids, there are people who are half the age of this vehicle who know all about a GDR XU1 Tirana and who love it and appreciate it for what it is. And you know, I find that quite fascinating, that a car that is 20 years older than a person, that person can still appreciate it and love it and think it's great.
Just shows you how iconic these things are and the legend of the big three at Bathurst and the karts. It's absolutely amazing, isn't it?
And people keep saying to me, Glenn, they ain't making any more of them, and that's absolutely the case. You know, it's a piece of motoring history, and hopefully this one's going to be around for a lot longer yet, and I'm going to get a lot more enjoyment out of it.
So Ron, what do we have here, mate? This looks very purposeful, this machine.
It's a VH Commodore with a 5-litre fuel-injected motor which has been stroked to 355, so I think that makes it about 5.8 or 5.9 litres. It handles really well because of, it's got some upgraded suspension in it, but it's also, Glenn, sits a lot wider than the Tirana track car I've got, so it goes around corners an awful lot better. It's a lot of fun, and it gets used not all that many times a year, but I love it as a track car, and it's got a few things the Tirana hasn't got, like something called power steering, which makes it nice out on the track, and yeah, it's good. It runs really well. It's a good and reliable car.
So there's a bit of retro there with modern technology. And what sort of horsepower does it make?
It was dynoed when I have had the engine rebuilt about a year or so ago, and it was dynoed, and it's up somewhere around the 400 horsepower mark.
So she's healthy?
Yeah, she goes really well. She motors along nicely. I love my track days. I'm not very good as a racing car driver. It's something that I took up later in life, and I don't pretend to be any good, but my definition of a great day out at the track is basically defined by how big the smile is on the face, and also whether I can actually drive the car back on the trailer at the end of the day, because it can get very expensive and very ugly if you can't.
Now, I've noticed some signage on one of the vehicles, Red Sox Racing. Tell us about that.
When I started my market research business back in 1991, I said to Judy, my wife, that I needed to do something that might make me stand out a little bit from the rest, and the decision I took at the time was that I would never ever go to work and not wear red socks. So that philosophy has remained true today, and the business has been going now for 23 years. So every single day that I go to work, I wear red socks. And as a consequence, in honour of that, if you like, I decided for a little bit of fun that I'd start a racing team, which by the way has got one participant in it, that'd be me. And it's called Red Sox Racing, and it's just a bit of a giggle, just something to have a bit of fun with.
Interested in finding your very own muscle car like these? It's so easy to find your next dream car. Just head to uniquecarsales.com.au. Select by make, model and more to find the perfect car for you, or just browse your favourite category. You'll find a massive range of cars like the ones we've just seen at uniquecarsales.com.au. Well, here's one to get the heart racing, Ron. Tell us about this machine.
This, Glenn, is a GTR XU2, although there's a lot of debate about whether they were actually going to be called XU2s, but I need to point out this is a replica. This is definitely not the genuine article. It's a GTR XU2 replica. It's got a 308 V8 in it, as the original prototypes did that were built by Harry Firth. This one's been stroked to 355, so it produces a little bit of extra horsepower. It's about 231 kilowatts at the rear wheels. It's a car that I bought from a gentleman called Rory up in Queensland who built the car many, many years ago, and it was the first car that I bought when I decided it was time to have a go at doing some track days. So I bought this car specifically for that. I have spent some serious money on this car, and I think anybody who owns a track car and plays with them as I do, who can't do the mechanics themselves and the body themselves, does end up spending serious money on these things. It's cost me a penny. It's taken a long time to get reliable.
Hang on, your wife's watching. She's going to be watching this.
Yes, well, perhaps we might just have to suggest to her
should we edit that out?
We should probably edit that out a little bit. Well, it wasn't that much. It was
okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so the car is now pretty reliable. It's got a 9-inch diff in it and a top loader, which is inconsistent with the original car. I know that. But I got sick of breaking banjo diffs and M21 gearboxes. They were popping the whole time and it just became ridiculous. So what I've done is I've built this thing for reliability. You'll also probably notice, or those viewers who are familiar with this car might notice, that it hasn't got the original 13-inch wheels on it anymore. That's because one of the challenges that you have with a car like this is that when you put a great big thumping V8 in it and you can produce 231 kilowatts at the rear wheels, that's a hell of a lot better than it stops, and it was actually a dangerous car to drive. So we've upgraded the brakes to make it stop a little bit better and make it safer to run. And today it's a lovely track car. The engine was rebuilt about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's still going strong today. It sounds absolutely awesome. It's just got the best rumble as a stroker tends to have. You know, the strokers tend to make that very deep note. Fun to drive, 4-speed. Racing around Sandown or Phillip Island as I regularly do in this car, it's a whole lot of fun. It's great.
You're talking around 400 horsepower at the flywheel, and a lightweight car, it's probably all of 1,100 kilograms. What a missile, what a missile.
It is quick. I often say the only thing that holds this car back from breaking lap records is the idiot behind the wheel, because
that's a bit harsh.
Whereas
mate.
They say the nut behind the wheel, because I don't profess to be a racing car driver. But again, my objective when I take this thing out is to have fun, not to go fast. It's a lovely car. It's lots of fun, and gee, it draws a lot of attention as well for a prototype. It's incredible how many people are aware of the GTR XU2 and what it meant to Holden and why it didn't proceed with the muscle car scare and all the things that happened way back then in the early 70s.
Ron, I believe this is the jewel in the crown, mate. Tell us all about this machine.
It is, Glenn. It's an A9X hatchback. I guess any Australian muscle car fan, but particularly any Holden Australian muscle car fan would be well familiar with this car and how special and iconic it is. It's a lovely car. There are only, I believe, 99 of them ever made. They say 100, but I believe it was only 99. A magic car. When I started collecting, it was always my dream to have an A9X, and I was lucky enough to be able to buy this one 4 or 5 years ago now. I actually got it through the Shannons auction process, bought it straight after an auction here in Melbourne. But it's a lovely car. It's in beautiful condition. It's basically unrestored. What you see is what you get. I've done a couple of things to it. I put new carpet in it, and I did that because the carpet had that musty old smell, and it's something that I find rather offensive. So I did go and change the carpet in it, and it's had a little bit of paint on it over its life. But other than that, it's pretty much stock standard. It's had an engine rebuild before I owned it. but it's a beautiful car and it's so much fun to drive. And of course, as I said, it's an A9X. What else can I say? It's a magic piece of motoring history.
These things absolutely destroyed the opposition on the racetrack, and they did so much, didn't they?
They were just unbelievable up at Bathurst.
And you picked it up from Shannons. They do have some amazing cars down there, don't they?
They have some very nice cars. In fact, they had two A9Xs for sale in the auction that I bought this one at, a jasmine yellow sedan and this hatchback. I always wanted the hatchback because I thought they were more special. So I did buy it down there, and I've got all the cars insured with them actually. So Shannons look after me on all of the cars, which is great.
Well, mate, what an incredible car. It's been a lifetime dream of mine to actually own one of these cars. It may never happen, but it's so fantastic to see this here in the flesh. And look, you did mention that I might be able to drive a car. I know this is a massive ask because I know it's probably worth as much as many houses out there, but would it be okay if I drove this car?
Glenn, you'd be very welcome to take it for a spin around the block and let the viewers experience what it's like to have a run in an A9X. I imagine many of them won't have had the chance to do that, and it is magic. And enjoy, take it away and have some fun.
I can't wait, mate. Thank you so much.
That's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Hi, I'm Dennis. This is my 32 and I run Aeroflow.
Hi, I'm Paul. This is my Attack 56 and I use Aeroflow.
I'm Scott. This is Blown Inheritance. Makes 1,700 horsepower and we depend on Aeroflow.
Hi, I'm Graham Cowan. For race-winning performance, I choose Aeroflow. Aeroflow, way to go.
Aeroflow, manufacturers of professional hose, fittings and a whole range of performance products to suit your vehicle. To download the latest Aeroflow catalogue, go to aeroflowperformance.com. Proud supporters of the Aeroflow Outlaw Nitro Funny Cars.
You know, some people say to me, gee, you must love your job. You know what I say to them? Yes. Who wouldn't love this? I'm driving an A9X hatchback, the iconic Aussie muscle car. Probably one of the most iconic when it comes to racetrack performance too. Who could forget Peter Brock winning Bathurst by 6 laps with Jim Richards? And on the very last lap, just to stamp his authority because he could, he just went out and smashed the lap record. What a car. Look, I'm a big fan of the GT HO Phase 3 and U49 Chargers and all those muscle cars. XU1 as well, little giant killer. But these things, I don't know, for me, they're just about at the top of the tree. The minute you jump in these cars, you just feel like you're in a car that means business. It oozes muscle. This muscular steering wheel, the big reverse cowl hood scoop. They look mean, they look tough. You know you're in a car that was designed to go motor racing. The big flares, and especially when you've got a big set of tyres on these things to fill those flares, they look absolutely superb. Effectively, we're driving a car that was designed to go racing. It is a race car that was built for the road, to comply with homologation, to go out and win Bathurst. And that's what it did. You know, the L34 Tirana was a good thing. They effectively had more engine modifications because the rules changed in the A9X. And CAMS changed things so they didn't have to go too crazy from a factory perspective, but they allowed more freedoms. So the race teams could then modify the A9X engine to get what they needed. The L34 had a few Achilles heels. Its differential, they used to brake, axles. Good old Aussie 4-speed gearbox couldn't quite cope with the punishment, especially in racing conditions. When the A9X came along, that was the icing on the cake. They allowed to run a Salisbury diff, heavy-duty diff, 4-wheel disc brakes. Now that's a massive advantage in any circuit racing application, but especially for endurance racing. The other thing they allowed them to do too was to run the big heavy-duty T10 gearbox. That thing was super tough, very, very hard to brake. You've got to love that. You've just got to love that 4-barrel. Induction noise. Something these cars are definitely not short of, especially with that big bonnet scoop there. Awesome thing too. People often say, why did they reverse them around? Well, there's a low pressure point at the front of the windscreen, you get a lot of really good air coming in there to make good horsepower, especially at very high speeds, at places like Bathurst on Conrod Straight. And that's what mattered with these cars. And that's why I love these things. Pure muscle, V8 muscle. Gotta love it. Can't believe I'm actually driving a genuine A9X hatchback. It's almost surreal. We're talking about a very, very expensive car here. Probably more than half the price of your average house these days. I feel a little bit nervous, but at the same time, I'm enjoying myself. I'm going to take hold of this moment and enjoy every minute of it. To drive the type of car that the legendary Peter Brock had so much success in, for me, is so special. I've always dreamt of owning one of these cars, but the truth is I'd probably never be able to afford one. So I'm very, very privileged and really appreciate being able to drive this machine today. Unbelievable.
At Autobarn, we know that your wife and the love of your life aren't always the same thing. We know that music makes the journey go faster, so we've got a full range of car audio systems. We know a bit of effort can save a lot of money, so we have everything you need to take care of your car. We know the difference between fashion and protection, so we have a huge range of seat covers. And we know you're busy, so our expert staff can fit all sorts of products and accessories for you. Autobarn, we know how to get you there.
Driving the A9X was an absolutely spectacular experience and one I'll never forget. Just to sit in one of those cars is a huge, huge deal to me. But there's something I forgot to tell you. Ron actually said I can drive this XU2 replica. That's right, a replica of the car Harry Firth built. You ready? Join me. Enjoy the ride. Wow, can't believe it. I'm driving the XU2 replica, just like the one that Harry Firth was behind, a prototype car. Sure, there's some modern upgrades on this vehicle to make it a bit tougher, but it's very, very close to like the real car would have been back in the day. Unbelievable. In fact, they say that it wasn't necessarily going to be called the XU2. That was actually the prefix used for the new and up-and-coming LH Tirana. Supposedly going to be called the XU1 GTR V8. You know what? Who cares? It was going to be a V8. Whatever name. Awesome. What a weapon this thing is. I can't believe how sedate it is. It's got a fair-sized camshaft in it, but being a stroker with a few extra cubic inches, it certainly helps drivability. It's a pretty special moment, this, driving this car. Something I never thought I'd be doing. I know it's not the real one, but it's the closest thing I'm going to ever get to driving that car. It looks like it sounds like it, and it goes like it. It all relates back to that muscle car scare, or the supercar scare as they call it, back in the early 70s. When the government chopped all of these missiles that were being built for people to buy off the street, death traps they called them. Look, in some hands they may have been, but I'm sure most of the owners would have looked after them. They were being built for motor racing. They were being built for one purpose, and that was to go out and win at Bathurst. She's a torque monster, an absolute torque monster. I reckon the biggest problem would be traction. Keeping that power to the ground, that's one area where they would have struggled. Sure, it's got a big heavy V8 over the front with the Holden V8, which might have created handling issues back in the day, but from what I'm told, Harry Firth said these things handled absolutely fantastic in this configuration. And the power to weight would have been astronomical. would have been a missile down Conrod Strait. I've heard reports that back in the day, these cars, or this particular car, was going to be a 160 mile per hour car. That is so damn fast. There's something else I heard. In a bit of testing in those early days with Larry Perkins behind the wheels, they saw an indicated 170 mile per hour. And I tell you what, after feeling the acceleration in this car, I wouldn't doubt it. Obviously the best place for this car is the racetrack. We can't take advantage of all the power on the road. Tell you what though, if I could get on the racetrack with this thing and unleash it, I reckon it'd be an experience beyond belief. Even driving it now at a normal pace is outstanding. It's exhilarating and it's getting my heart racing. Have a listen to this thing. It's not even trying. Not even revving the thing up. That's about 3,500 to 4,000 RPM. Thing's off tap. You just couldn't unleash it on the street. Be very irresponsible of me. Requires a lot of discipline and control. This thing is a raw beast. It's raw, it's loud, it's angry, it's cammed up, it's clunky. Everything you love about a track car, a muscle car from this era. You know you're driving them. You know you're alive. Not like a modern day vehicle where there's no wind noise and they're silky smooth, they handle like they're on rails. These things are a driver's car. You got to grab them by the scruff of the neck, you got to control them, just like they would have in the day around Bathurst. It's such a damn shame that that supercar scare happened. If someone like Brock behind the wheel of something like this, no one would have caught him. The E55 Charger and the Phase 4 GT would have given them a run for their money, but gee, so hard to beat a lightweight car with a big V8 engine. And that's why. Woo! Yeah, baby! I want this car. I want every car, that's my problem. I'm a lucky man. What a fantastic day this has been, and what an amazing collection owned by Ron Klein here. I want to thank Ron so much for letting us enjoy his passion. Not only did we get to see some magnificent cars, but we got to drive two spectacular vehicles that I thought I'd never even sit in, let alone drive. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. We'll see you next time on Man and Machine.
Don't forget, if you'd like to watch past episodes of Man and Machine, jump online and head to Shannons Club. Man and Machine is brought to you by Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts, and the following sponsors.